Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time, as we wrap up Sunday, 25th May 2025. Let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Ukraine faced its largest air raid of the war as Russia launched nearly 370 missiles and drones, causing at least 12 deaths, including 3 children in the Kyiv and Zhytomyr regions, and injuring dozens across over 30 cities and villages, with Kyiv as the primary target. Despite the ongoing conflict, Ukraine and Russia completed a significant prisoner exchange, releasing 307 service personnel from each side, a rare instance of cooperation. Meanwhile, Russia claimed to have captured 3 more settlements in eastern Ukraine and has made attempts to advance in the Sumy region, launching overnight attacks on Kyiv that wounded at least 10 people. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that our silence encourages Putin. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russian forces have orders to create a security buffer zone along the border. Turning to the United States, former Vice President Kamala Harris cautioned to remember the 1930s while criticizing Elon Musk at the Australian Real Estate Conference on the Gold Coast, also raising concerns about AI. Adding to international economic tensions, President Trump threatened to impose a 50% tariff on all goods from the EU starting June 1st. While also defending his ban on Harvard accepting foreign students and demanding transparency regarding their identities. Furthermore, he claimed credit for rebuilding the most powerful army the world has ever known in a speech to West Point graduates. The U.S. may consider using next-gen fighter jets and loyal wingmen to offset China's military numbers. Across the Pacific, in China, Vice Premier He Lifeng met with US finance chiefs, asserting that the Chinese economy demonstrates resilience and vitality. Finally, in the European Union, the threat of a 50% tariff on all goods from the US starting June 1 looms large. Amidst the conflict in Ukraine, Europe is considering increasing its purchases of US arms for Ukraine, which could potentially deter Russia's advance and increase pressure on Putin to negotiate a ceasefire. Israeli military actions in Gaza have escalated, resulting in widespread international condemnation. An Israeli airstrike killed 9 of Dr. Ala al-Nechar's 10 children, aged 7 months to 12 years, in Khan Yunis. Dr. al-Nechar, a pediatric specialist treating victims of Israeli attacks, found her home ablaze upon her return. Gaza Civil Defense reported 15 deaths from Israeli strikes, including Dr. al-Nahar's children and another family of 4. Dr. Mads Gilbert described the strike as an outrageous crime. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, is urging increased aid to Gaza due to extreme deprivation. There are accusations that Israel is deliberately targeting the food supply chain to cause starvation. Israel is considering allowing aid groups to manage non-food aid distribution. A new Gaza aid plan, promoted as independent, is alleged to have Israeli connections and is designed to undermine Hamas. Israel is investigating alleged instances of soldiers using Palestinians as human shields in Gaza, a practice the IDF prohibits. Reports also indicate Israel is repurposing commercial drones for use as weapons in Gaza. Families of Israeli captives have criticized Prime Minister Netanyahu, with the Hostages and Missing Families Forum demanding renewed negotiations. Turning to the United States, 2 employees of the Israeli embassy in Washington were killed in a shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, and a suspect has been charged with murder. Ukraine and Russia completed a significant prisoner exchange, with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky confirming the return of 303 Ukrainian individuals, the largest exchange between the two nations thus far. This 1,000 4,000 swap took place over 3 days, but coincided with renewed Russian military actions within Ukrainian borders. Russian forces initiated drone and missile strikes targeting Kyiv and western Ukraine, leading to reported casualties in the capital and surrounding areas. Ukraine's foreign minister described these attacks, which occurred on the final day of the exchange, as the most intense in recent weeks. Despite the ongoing conflict, an NPR report from a hospital in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine highlighted that while many residents have left, some young couples remain and express hope for raising their children in a peaceful future. Turning to the United Kingdom, recent data shows Labour experiencing a drop in opinion poll favourability regarding its leadership and key policies, the most substantial decline for a newly elected government in the past 4 decades. Economists are expressing concerns about potential shifts in the equilibrium of UK wage levels. Wage increases for workers have been secured in Eastbourne and elsewhere in the UK in response to climbing inflation rates. Further analysis reveals that the Labour government is allocating less funding to youth work in England than the Conservative government did previously, following a decade of cuts to the sector. A youth work charity is now advocating for increased government investment in this area. In policy news, all UK rail operators are scheduled for renationalisation within the next 2 years, under a key initiative led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Japan is actively maneuvering within international trade negotiations while tackling domestic issues ranging from industrial production to societal challenges. Japan is reportedly offering cooperation in shipbuilding as a potential bargaining chip in tariff negotiations with the United States. Chief Tariff Negotiator Ishiba plans to advance these discussions at the upcoming G7 summit, emphasizing progress in trade expansion, non-tariff measures, and economic security. Domestically, Japan is preparing to streamline license plate production by permitting only multicolor versions of special plates, addressing anticipated increases in demand. Concerns continue to rise regarding the impact of microplastics on health and fertility, solidifying the need to reduce plastic production. Customer harassment is also a growing issue, highlighted by the arrest of a Kyoto man for coercing an appliance store clerk to shave his head and multiple melon thefts in Ibaraki Prefecture. Turning to arts and culture, Japanese filmmaker Koji Fukada's new film addresses exploitative contracts affecting young female pop stars. Ayumu Saito is working to elevate modern pentathlon's profile in Japan, setting sights on the 2028 Olympics. Additionally, Japan's Seityo received the International Critics Award at Cannes for their work on a French-Belgian production centered around dandelion seeds. Syria has greeted the U.S. decision to ease some Assad-era sanctions as a positive step. This move, according to the Foreign Ministry, could alleviate humanitarian and economic suffering. It may also pave the way for reconstruction, with Syria expressing openness to cooperation. However, this is contingent on non-intervention in its internal affairs. Following this agreement by the US and EU, Syrian official al-Shara met with Erdogan in Turkey. The Syrian government is also reportedly seeking to reassure the West and is rebooting the Interior Ministry. Government and Kurdish officials jointly visited a notorious prison camp, highlighting the issue of Kurdish-run camps in Syria's northeast, holding tens of thousands of people, many suspected of ISIS links. It has also been reported that Syrians in Aleppo celebrated the lifting of sanctions. Israeli airstrikes on the country have seemingly subsided since the U.S. decision. Syria is depending on foreign assistance to fund the costs of rebuilding. Australia is currently battling devastating floods that have resulted in 5 fatalities and the displacement of thousands. Rescue teams performed 52 rescues overnight. Food and supplies are being airdropped to isolated farmers in New South Wales. In more positive environmental news, western quolls, Idnia, and bush-tail possums, Virlda, are flourishing in Ikara Flinders Ranges National Park, 10 years after their reintroduction, according to Teletham Moyle, a reintroduction ecologist with the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Meanwhile, Falfitu Alapati Tuatualai, a New Zealander with a history of serious crimes, is being deported after living in Australia for 27 years. A Melbourne shopping centre was also placed under lockdown after a violent clash involving knives between two groups. One man in his 20s suffered upper body injuries. In sports news, Wuhan emerged victorious against Melbourne in the first ever AFC Women's Champions League, with Wang Shuang scoring the decisive penalty. North Korea experienced a setback as the launch of a new 5,000-ton naval destroyer in Chongjin failed, leading to the detention of 3 shipyard officials. The vessel sustained damage to its bottom during the launch, corroborated by satellite imagery showing it covered with tarpaulins. Kim Jong-un denounced the incident as a result of absolute carelessness and promised punishment. In other news, families rallied with around 800 participants, including lawmakers, advocating for the return of all Japanese citizens abducted by North Korea. China is advancing its technological capabilities, with scientists working on stealth technology to potentially counter a U.S. missile defense system. Respiratory disease. Expert Zhong Nanshan anticipates a peak and subsequent decline in COVID-19 cases within the next month and advises symptomatic individuals to seek treatment. The Chinese spy agency is cautioning citizens about potential foreign spies who may pose as scholars, tourists, or romantic partners on social media platforms. President Xi Jinping has scheduled a crucial meeting to discuss China's forthcoming 5-year plan, which will require approval at the 4th plenum. Aiming to boost tourism under the Visa-Free Travel Initiative, Alibaba's AMAP has integrated an English-language ride-hailing service for international visitors. The United Arab Emirates, specifically Dubai and Abu Dhabi, are seeing increased investment from Hong Kong and mainland China. Gaw Capital and Black Spade Capital are among the firms investing in the UAE's property market. France recently faced a widespread power outage in the Cannes area, affecting 160,000 residences and briefly interrupting the Cannes Film Festival's finale. Authorities are investigating potential arson and vandalism at a substation and electricity pylon as the cause. Eventually, power was restored to the region. Separately, in Reims, a memorial service took place to celebrate the life of Sebastião Salgado, the celebrated Brazilian photographer and environmental advocate. On the business front, truck manufacturer Windrose seeks to develop an electric vehicle ecosystem within Europe, supporting President Macron's Battery Valley plan. Bangladesh faces potential disruptions to its ready-made garment sector, agriculture, and other industries due to land port closures. Turning to India, visa services have been restored for Afghan nationals, covering categories including investors, artists, and sportspersons, with a new online visa module initiated in late April. India and Pakistan are bracing for potential future conflict, evidenced by the replenishment of their arsenals and the exploration of unused technologies, despite existing nuclear concerns. In addition, both India and Pakistan are engaged in a narrative war, deploying delegations to various global capitals to sway international perspectives on the Kashmir conflict and issues of terrorism. Germany is weighing the reintroduction of compulsory military service if volunteer recruitment falls short. This comes amid growing concerns about national defense capabilities. The nation is also preparing for potential large-scale cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure. These attacks could severely disrupt essential services and endanger citizens. In Hamburg, a woman was arrested following a mass stabbing at the central station, with authorities indicating no political motive. Malaysia advocated for an expanded ceasefire in Myanmar at the ASEAN summit. Foreign Minister Mohammed Hassan urged regional leaders to extend the ceasefire beyond the earthquake zone. He also condemned Israel's actions in Gaza, calling it a reflection of double standards. In other news, Malaysia is advised to implement relief measures to mitigate potential negative consequences stemming from tariffs imposed by the United States, even as trade negotiations persist. Vietnam recently expedited the construction of a $1.50 billion Trump Gulf complex, showing how governments might prioritize projects associated with Trump, even bending domestic regulations to do so. Eric Trump and Lara Trump joined Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh and businessman Dang Tan Tam at the groundbreaking. Transitioning to Vietnam and Thailand, the two nations have elevated their relationship to a strategic partnership, focusing on bolstering trade ties and reducing reliance on China. This upgraded partnership has an ambitious objective: to increase bilateral trade to $25 billion by the year 2030. China's Premier Li Qiang met with Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto, focusing on expanded trade and investment ties. Li emphasized multilateralism during the meeting, which occurred amid global trade tensions. Accompanying Li were 60 Chinese business representatives at the Indonesia-China business reception, signaling a strong commitment to economic cooperation. CATL, contemporary Amperex Technology Company Limited, is collaborating with Indonesia on green initiatives. CATL strategically opted to list its IPO in Hong Kong, not New York. Pakistan's Prime Minister Sharif will meet with Turkish President Erdogan in Istanbul on May 25 to address bilateral relations and global issues. Simultaneously, the Pakistani government faces criticism from rights groups over its crackdown on online disinformation. Critics argue that the cybercrime law is being used to stifle critical voices, especially those of journalists. Tragically, extreme weather events in Pakistan, marked by wind, hail, and heat, have caused at least 14 deaths and 100 injuries, largely due to collapsing buildings. South Korea has raised objections to China's establishment of a no-sail zone in waters that overlap with South Korean maritime territory, citing the Korea Hydrographic and Oceanographic Agency's assessment that the zone is related to Chinese military drills. Turning to economic matters, South Korean presidential hopeful Lee Jae-myung suggested prolonging current tariff discussions with the United States to reach a mutually beneficial accord. Shifting to social welfare, South Korea's Warmth Mailbox program is designed to reduce digital isolation, linking volunteers with individuals who write letters anonymously, promoting understanding through personal handwritten communication. Council of Europe Chief Alain Berset has issued a warning against politicizing the European Court of Human Rights. His statement follows calls from 9 European leaders, including Italy's Giorgia Meloni and Denmark's Mette Frederiksen, to reassess the European Convention on Human Rights interpretation, particularly regarding migration. Meanwhile, in the United States, former President Trump has threatened significant tariffs. He proposed a 50% tariff on all imports from the European Union. Trump also specifically mentioned a 25% tariff on Apple products, citing ongoing trade negotiation frustrations with European countries. Ecuador's newly inaugurated President Daniel Noboa, a business heir, assumed office for a 4-year term after winning against Luisa Gonzalez. He promised decisive action against drug cartels, economic revitalization, and job creation. Bangladesh's political landscape sees Yunus remaining as the head of the interim government, despite his expressed desire to step down during a recent cabinet meeting, he was ultimately persuaded to continue in his role. Meanwhile, the interim government has issued warnings regarding the potential resurgence of authoritarian tendencies. Student protesters have also articulated their anxieties about possible consequences stemming from their demonstrations. The government has stated facing what it describes as unjustified demands and continuous obstruction of their work. Hong Kong's Education Bureau is now encouraging universities to increase international student admissions, following a similar move by the United States to broaden educational access. Transitioning to Venezuela, 5 opposition figures previously sheltered in Argentina's Caracas embassy have left for the United States and have begun issuing public statements. Cambodia is reportedly serving as the central hub for a major international criminal network. The network's extensive illicit operations are considered a significant risk to global economic and political order. Moving to Colombia, a bus accident involving a university group resulted in 9 fatalities. Road accidents remain a critical public safety issue in Colombia, with an average of 22 deaths daily in 2024. Regarding the Guyana-Venezuela border dispute, Venezuela is moving forward with elections in Essequibo, a region recognized internationally as part of Guyana. President Nicolás Maduro is pushing for the election of a governor for Essequibo, a move perceived as a direct challenge to Guyana's sovereign territory. In Lebanon, municipal elections took place in South Lebanon, effectively serving as a gauge of Hezbollah's political strength and its ability to maintain influence in the region. Shifting focus to Myanmar, mineral exploitation, especially in Kachin State, is causing widespread fatalities and environmental destruction amid a fierce competition for resources. Turning to the Poland-Ukraine situation, Poland deployed fighter jets in response to extensive Russian airstrikes targeting various Ukrainian cities with drones and missiles. This action occurred despite a recent large-scale prisoner exchange between the two nations. Qatar recently hosted the Table Tennis World Championships, despite limited local enthusiasm for the sport. Concurrently, an investigation is underway regarding a campaign by a wealthy Qatari businessman to secure the leadership position of the sport's global governing body. In Sri Lanka, actress and former Member of Parliament Malini Fonseka has passed away. She represented President Mahinda Rajapaksa's alliance in Parliament from 2010 to 2015. Finally, in the United States, Coffee County, Georgia Sheriff Fred Cole announced an arrest related to the 2006 murder of his wife at their business. The arrested man was previously regarded as a grieving widower, and that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.